Have you ever been hit by what you might call information shock?
Mm.
I don't just mean learning a new fact. I mean finding one single piece of content, a book, an article, a forum post.
Something that just shows up.
Yeah, it shows up totally unexpectedly and just radically alters the entire direction of your life. And it doesn't matter if you're an expert in your field, this just bypasses all of that and hits you right at your core.
Well, it's the difference between just accumulating data, which, formal education is great at,
Right.
and actually achieving a profound, almost seismic insight. And what we find is that the most powerful paradigm-shifting ideas, they often arrive not through some planned curriculum, but through sheer digital serendipity.
That concept is the absolute heart of the material we're diving into today. Our source is a deeply personal letter. It's just an incredibly raw and detailed account from a medical student in Tunis.
And she documents this exact kind of spiritual awakening almost in real time.
The summit.
So our mission in this deep dive is pretty crucial. We want to unpack the narrative of this woman, Camelia Asser. We need to identify the specific catalyst, the digital trigger that just shattered her apathy. We need to look at the shocking contrast between her, highly analytical professional life and this sudden personal revelation.
And then the fallout.
The immediate, urgent, practical dilemmas this new knowledge just instantly created for her. It's really a roadmap of life-altering change.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our protagonist is Camelia Asser, and she is not a casual observer in life. She is a dedicated student at the Faculty of Medicine in Tunis.
And she's close. So close.
So it's 1 year shy of graduation. I mean, she's at the absolute peak of her analytical training, about to become a doctor.
And that professional standing is so key because of the contradiction it sets up. Camelia admits in her own words that before this happened, she was completely dismissive of faith. She says friends would try to encourage her toward prayer, toward an Islamic way of life, and she wouldn't just ignore them. She says she used to mock them.
She built up a wall, an intellectual defense mechanism against anything spiritual.
Absolutely.
But here is the truly staggering irony. It's what she did every single day.
Yeah.
She was constantly surrounded by the ultimate proof of mortality. She states she was seeing and dissecting dead bodies, corpses, every single day as part of her studies.
This is where we have to pause, right? Because it's a paradox.
Totally.
Logically, you would assume that constant clinical exposure to mortality, literally handling the finality of the physical body, would force anyone to think about bigger questions.
You would think. But Camelia says, no, none of it affected her. She even goes so far as to claim that she didn't think she even had a heart left to be affected.
It just speaks volumes about professional desensitization.
It really does.
I mean, when you are trained to see death in a strictly clinical, analytical context, the corpse becomes a teaching object. It's a collection of systems to be diagnosed.
You have to create that intellectual distance.
You have to, just to survive it emotionally. Dissection is a deep dive into pathology, not existential meaning. You build this protective, analytical barrier.
So that raises the critical question then. If the tangible, physical reality of death failed to move her after years of this,
Right.
what source could possibly succeed?
And that just sets the stage perfectly for the power of the incoming catalyst.
And here's where her entire story just pivots. The catalyst wasn't a person, it wasn't a class, it wasn't even a challenging medical case. It started by accident, digitally. Camelia was just on the internet searching for research on, specialized medical topics, things that would be useful for her studies, a purely academic search.
She was searching inside her intellectual comfort zone. She wasn't looking for enlightenment. She was looking for, footnotes. And that small detail, that the search was for medical facts, is just so critical to understanding the power of what she finds.
Right. So while she's doing this, she enters a specific online forum, and that's where she finds what she calls the surprise that led to her guidance and her happiness.
An information shock that completely hijacked her original goal.
The ultimate shock. It was the discovery of a book titled Sun Nephews, which translates to The Last Breath. The author is Osman Nuri Tipeo Bashi.
So she's looking for anatomical data and stumbles across a title about the existential contemplation of death. It's just a fascinating collision of worldviews.
It is. It really makes you think about the algorithms of discovery, doesn't it?
It really does. And she admits she hesitated. There was this moment of reluctance. Her mind, trained to filter out anything non-clinical, must have just rebelled against it.
But she said she felt this overwhelming compulsion that she had to read it, or at least find out what was in it.
And I wonder if we underestimate that pull sometimes. That feeling that you should look at the one thing that doesn't fit your search criteria, because that's often where the knowledge you actually need is hiding. It speaks to a deep, latent curiosity that her professional defenses had suppressed for so long. The book title itself, Just, bypassed the analytical barrier that a real corpse couldn't penetrate, and the effects were immediate and physical. She starts reading just a small section of the book, and the emotional dam it breaks. She writes, "Gözlerim rimden yaşlar, boşanarak okumaya başladım." I started reading with tears streaming from my eyes. And that is the core insight of her whole letter. It's such a staggering contrast. You have years of cold clinical indifference just shattered by a few pages of thematic text.
She realized that despite being a medical student who looked at organs and tissue every day reading this book, it made her feel and hear about death for the very first time.
Wow.
All her intellectual knowledge, her mastery of anatomy, it was all completely meaningless compared to the emotional and spiritual reality in that text.
The clinical exposure told her how a heart stops beating. But the spiritual text provided the context for why the beating mattered in the first place. She finally connected the analytical fact to the existential implication.
And that connection demanded an immediate response. There was no ignoring it.
No way.
And the response wasn't delayed. She writes that she realized, "Dat beren we al den mekten katushok door." There is simply no escape from repentance and returning to God.
The decision was made.
Yeah.
Right there.
In that moment, she immediately declared her repentance, her tevbi. She began seeking forgiveness, istisfor, and she started performing the daily prayers, namaz.
This just beautifully illustrates the urgency of a true conversion experience.
Yeah.
It's not some philosophical project you pencil in for next semester.
Yeah.
It's an urgent, practical, immediate reset of all your priorities. And for anyone listening, this really highlights the power of targeted thematic content. If you're looking for rapid insight, sometimes the most focused source, like The Last Breath, can deliver more life-altering knowledge than 100 abstract textbooks.
Her gratitude for this book, for this source, is just so intense. She offers endless thanks. And her prayer for the author is one of the most moving parts of the whole letter.
What does she say?
She asks God to reward the author and the contributors in the best possible way, specifically asking that her own repentance be placed on their scale of good deeds, their Hazenot Terasazine on the day of judgment.
That request is so profound. It shows she immediately understands this idea of legacy and interconnectedness.
It does.
She recognizes the spiritual weight of her own transformation, and she wants to share the eternal benefit of it with the person who created the catalyst. It's a kind of spiritual economy in action.
And she immediately commits to paying it forward herself. She says she's going to share this incident with her friends, hoping it will lead to their guidance, their high debt.
So she went from mocking her friends to actively trying to guide them.
In one reading session.
The spiritual shift, then, is complete. She's now an active practitioner of her faith with this urgent conviction, but now the friction starts. The new spiritual reality has to collide with the old, rigid, institutional reality of her life.
Exactly. So we have to transition from her spiritual state to the immediate, practical, real-world consequences. And these show up as two urgent questions she asks the forum for advice on.
And the fact that these massive dilemmas pop up immediately just shows how incompatible her new understanding is with the life she was living. Her whole world is upside down.
Dilemma number one, and this one is, you could argue, the most professionally devastating. It's her education versus her observance.
Okay.
She mentions the specific institutional rule where she is. In Tunis, wearing the headscarf, the Bashatuzu is banned in universities.
And this isn't a minor inconvenience. She is 1 year from graduation. Just think about the stakes here.
Everything.
Years of study, a massive personal investment, her entire career path as a doctor, all of it is hinging on that final year.
So her question is just agonizing. What should she do? Does she defy the university ban to adhere to her new faith and just abandon her entire professional future?
Or does she compromise on her observance to get her degree?
It's a zero-sum conflict, and it's being forced on her by external rules. The cost of her newfound faith is potentially her entire lifetime ambition. She's being forced to choose between her spiritual and professional identity right at the finish line.
And as if that wasn't enough pressure, She has an equally complex internal conflict,
The atonement.
the dilemma of atonement.
Yeah.
She states very simply that she had not prayed namaz until this moment, and she asks a direct question. Does she need to make up all the previously missed prayers, the qaza prayers?
And this is a massive theological and practical burden. We have to understand the weight of qaza prayers. It's not just saying, oh, I messed up.
No, it's a requirement to perform those prayers retroactively.
Depending on her age, this could be years' worth of prayers that she now has to add on top of her new 5 times a day obligation.
Precisely. So she's dealing with the profound weight of her past, while trying to navigate this perilous professional future. She's gone from not praying at all to potentially having to perform, 7 or 8 sets of prayers every single day for years just to catch up. It's a common, very difficult pattern you see when a sudden, profound conversion meets rigid institutional rules and deep theological requirements. Her life instantly became incredibly demanding.
Absolutely. So if we just look back at Camelia Ursher's journey, we've watched her go from a student of anatomy, this analytically cold person on the verge of becoming a doctor, to a student of faith.
Driven by overwhelming emotion and urgency.
And the trigger for this life-shattering transformation, it wasn't a complex debate. It wasn't a lecture from a professor.
It was an unexpected book, The Last Breath, found while she was searching for dry clinical research online. It just confirms that insight can completely bypass our intellectual defenses when it addresses us on the right existential level.
It does, and this is really the final thought we want to leave you with, connecting Camelia's journey back to your own goals as a learner, as a researcher. This deep dive revealed how the most profound, the most actionable, and maybe the most life-altering knowledge is often found not in the expected curriculum, not in the search terms we carefully type in,
but in the surprising gaps between those criteria. Camelia's professional search led her to a personal insight.
It really makes you ask the question, what unexpected source, a title you scrolled past, a forum thread you didn't click, a topic that's just outside your immediate focus?
What out there holds the power to fundamentally alter your understanding of your own life, your work, or your core assumptions? We'd encourage you to maybe intentionally wander off topic during your next digital search. Just see what unexpected paths might reveal themselves.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.